Hello everyone, and welcome back to Todos Santos. In this episode, the plan is to finally fill in this freeway area we've been working on with some buildings. And I'm starting off just by making a very simple frontage road system. So we have one-way roads running along either side of the freeway, and this is where all the business and residential access is. And I tried to loosely base this off what you're seeing now, which is just a very simple stretch of freeway in San Juan. You know, I'm not trying to recreate it or anything, but I just found the layout somewhat interesting, and I like the combination of having all these low-rise buildings, but having them packed together densely. So that's sort of the look we're going for. And this was really my first shot at trying to create this sort of neighborhood, so it's okay. I think you'll see in the cinematics that I didn't quite hit the mark in terms of the way it looks from above, which is really what I was aiming for. And part of that was because, again, this is old footage, about a year old, maybe a little bit more. So I was pretty limited in terms of the types of assets I had. But also I just didn't really hit the mark, I think, with the arrangement of the buildings. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. And so we'll be coming back to that later, and I'll be addressing what we're going to do to fix that and make it a little bit more accurate and interesting. Regardless of that, I'm still going to try to walk you through what I'm doing and what my thought process is, as much as I can remember it at least. So we're starting here with the road network, which I am fairly happy with. And sort of the main theme I got from looking at roads all over San Juan is that there are lots of long, skinny blocks that almost sort of look like a grid if you blur your eyes, but there are all these streets that, you know, sometimes they curve, sometimes they stop in the middle of the grid or whatever and start up somewhere else. And all these long, skinny streets seem to run perpendicular to main roads or freeways like this. So that's sort of the general idea that I'm going for. And I want it to have that overall appearance of sort of like a weird modified grid, but also have just these kind of not impractical, but roads that don't really align to, a perfect grid. And I'm using these one-way streets because I noticed pretty much all of these sorts of streets have parking on them, and the skinniest streets I have with parking on them are one-way. So even though not all these roads in real life are one-way, that's pretty much the asset that I have to use, and that's fine. I don't necessarily care too much about whether cars drive both ways down the street or not. That doesn't matter much to me, as long as I still get that overall look of the street being filled with parked cars. And this is where I begin to get just a little bit off track from the sort of look I'm going for. I start with having these, a mix of commercial and sort of light industry looking buildings on the frontage road, which is fine. That's what I wanted to do. But again, this is sort of a mixture of limitation of assets, but also me just losing track of what I'm going for. But I think I really just did too many one-story buildings. And looking at it now, going around Google Earth, there are lots of 3 to 4 story buildings and a mixture of bigger and smaller buildings. And I don't really get that with what I do here. And you might notice that the frontage road there looks a little off in terms of it's just a little lumpy compared to the freeway. That's another thing that I will be coming back and fixing with the node controller mod, which is amazing. It allows you to have sloped nodes and among many other features, and that's a great way to fix that sort of problem. But anyway, I put that chain link fence there just because that's something I've seen on frontage roads like this, separating it from the freeway. So I'm going to finish putting down this first wave of buildings, and I'll be back in just a second. Now we're starting to put down some residential buildings in addition to finishing up the industrial and commercial area. And I think this is really where I'm starting to, let's say, stretch the realism aspect. And I mean, it's not like I'm going for a perfectly realistic or completely true to life build. I mean, I want to have some aspect of it just be from my imagination and just doing it for fun. But, I'd like to get at least the general overall feel right. And, it's something that's not easy to do. Even if I had like a whole pack of assets that were directly created from San Juan, it would still be a really hard undertaking to get that right. And so I think we're going to improve as the series goes on. It's not like this is like a terrible area or anything. It looks fine. And I'm not going to go back and delete everything and replace them. Although I will replace some buildings because, as I mentioned before, there are some fantastic assets that are a little bit more to theme now on the workshop. And I've been adding them back in various places like this. But I just didn't want to go back and do like a wholesale replacement of areas that I've already completely filled in. You will get to see all these new assets in action in later episodes though, so hopefully you're looking forward to that. I'm definitely looking forward to showing you. And I'm really happy with those. In fact, I think I'm going to show you guys a little sneak peek of what I've been working on, just because I'm so excited about how cool these assets are and how much they add to the city. So if you stick around for the end of the video, or if you skip there, you'll get to jump ahead about 10 episodes or so and see. I'm not going to give away any major projects that we're going to work on or anything. I really would like to avoid that sort of spoiler, but I will show you some of the assets and some of the areas that I've been working on, just little details, and I'll try to show off some of these amazing assets. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough about all this stuff, so let's get back to what I'm actually building here. So we're just finishing up this road network, and now I start putting down the residential area. You'll see the population is at about 30,000 right now. That's going to change. Really, you see the green bar there. That's basically saying there's a bunch of residential demand. We have tons of jobs downtown, both office and industrial, plenty of commercial as well, all over the city, and we just don't have enough houses. So I really want to fill a bunch of this area with this sort of, ideally, if I was just trying to grow population, I'd build a bunch of high density buildings everywhere. And we do a lot of that. But I would like to replicate sort of the view you can get of San Juan, where you have a lot of these, I assume, single family homes lined up like this fairly densely. Okay, just a little aside really quickly. You see how I copied and pasted that line of houses there? Basically what it is I made a local asset with these Mexican house assets, which is, at the time I was building this, that was the closest I had to replicate the sort of house you seem to find all over San Juan. They're not perfect, but we do have, like I've mentioned before, a set of Puerto Rican houses. Anyway, I had this local asset where I basically put, I think it's five of those houses together. And that was basically just to, one, I can add a bunch of details and make it easier on myself in terms of detailing. So there are fences and various trees and stuff, but also to make it easier to place, of course, and also to try to fend off the day that we're going to hit the building limit, which basically, if you don't know, there's a limit to the number of buildings that the game can actually allow you to place for some reason. I'm not sure if there's a way to circumvent that yet, like there is with some of the other limits. I should probably look into that, because I think we'll probably hit it eventually before I'm done filling in the city. Where I am now in terms of where I'm building, about a third of the way there. And same with the node and network limit. Anyway, sorry for the tangent from the tangent, but when I copy and paste those 5 house assets with Move It, it seems like 4 out of the 5 houses disappear every time for some reason. I don't know if it's something, like I did something wrong with the sub-buildings, I don't know. But anyway, I had this issue where I loaded up the game recently, and every single one of those assets that I had placed was like that. Even the ones I hadn't initially copied and pasted with Move It, there were 4 out of 5 of every house missing, which is just silly. It was kind of annoying at first, but I took that as an opportunity to go back and put in some of the new assets, because at this point I did have these new awesome Puerto Rican and Cuban assets and everything. But it was just kind of weird that happened. I'm still not sure to this day what actually made all those assets mess up, because I can still place them normally, but although I haven't been, just because I'm wary of it happening again and losing a bunch of work. That's enough about that though. So I'm filling in. I'll talk about tree cover for a second. I'm putting a lot of trees here, and I mean that's just like my inclination is to just fill every gap with trees, because one, it looks cool and I like trees a lot. And 2, it's an amazing way to cover up gaps, especially when you're looking at it from above. It can look a little awkward down at street level, but there's only so much I can do in terms of building a city this big to make it look good at street level. So I try to keep my focus in terms of detailing and covering up these awkward gaps on the most important parts of the city, like we've done in downtown and the main strip there and everything, and the old town, of course. And then I just, I only have a limited amount of time and attention I can pay to these more anonymous neighborhoods. So filling it in with trees is one of the best ways to cover up gaps there. I still think it's a bit much though. Looks a little unrealistic. There is one major downside to trees though, and it's that they catch fire. Yeah, I have a mod that disables fire now. It's not the first time that happened. Anyway, so at this point, I'm basically done filling in the residential area, and I'm just trying to figure out what to do with these last little gaps. And these are always the hardest things to do when you're building a city, unless it's a strictly grid-based city, like you're recreating New York City or something. You always get these little weird angles where you can't really fit a building, but you also aren't really sure exactly what details to put. So, I'm plopping down some billboards and trees and random buildings. What I try to do consistently moving on is that I don't leave gaps really in areas that we work on. I mean, we leave like large swaths of land unfinished, of course, and that's stuff we're going to do later. But in terms of having like this gap between the road and the freeway, I just don't want to leave that sort of thing unfinished when I'm working on the area. I just want to get it done with so that eventually, we can make the rest of the city and have all these projects, and then we can come back and just have a completely unbroken span of city from one edge to the other, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And we do that with this area. We fill in these gaps, and then later on in the series, we're going to be able to look at this whole part that is east of downtown. It's going to be all filled in between downtown and the hills. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of building coming on this series, and I'm definitely looking forward to sharing all of that with you. So now I'm starting to detail this area where the road that crosses the freeway runs by the neighborhood. This is a really important road because it runs all the way from one of the industrial areas we're going to make, crosses the freeway, links up to both freeways that run perpendicular to one another, and then it goes all the way down toward the shore where we're going to have a pretty big area with a bunch of high-rises. But anyway, I figured it was a pretty major road, so I put down some services like that very nice-looking school, police station, clinic, that sort of thing. And in a second, I also put down some commercial zone here. Also, this green fence, amazing. I love this asset so much. It just looks so cool. And I also run a bus line through here, and I want to, as I expand, add and expand old bus lines to fit with the new roads. Because that's just fun, and I don't know, I don't have the patience to wait until the entire city's finished to put transit lines down. That just doesn't strike me as a fun way to play the game. Plus it just sort of splits up the work because I do have those bus stop assets that I made in the asset editor, and I like to put those down as I go instead of, again, having to come back at the end and just put down everything at once. This just sounds like a real drag. And now I'm going to fill in some of these last gaps like I was talking about before and put down a few more details. So just like a couple episodes ago, I'll meet you at the bottom of the hill in just a second. So at the bottom of the hill that we made 2 episodes ago, I wanted to have a line of houses because this is something I saw on Google Earth when I was looking around for that build. And I just thought it was kind of cool to have this uniform line of development right at the bottom of the hill. Instead of having it, go right up to the road or something, there's like this little plot of land that was zoned for residential. So that's kind of a cool look. And then we're just replicating what we did in that episode, putting these filler trees down. It's a lot of trees. I don't know. It looks fine for the hill, obviously, because that's like intended to be a really densely forested urban park. But it's just a little too much in terms of in the actual neighborhood. And we're almost at the end of the build, just putting down, of course, the obligatory power lines that I just love. They add so much detail. So I mirrored this entire build on the other side of the freeway, and I didn't cut it out or anything. I just didn't have the footage. I didn't record it. It's basically the same thing. You'll see it in the cinematics. You'll also see some house assets that I've gone and plopped in there since doing this build. So hopefully you'll enjoy those. You might also see some changes I've made in terms of details using the intersection marking tool and node controller to clean things up a little, make it look a little bit nicer. But first I'm going to jump into something I've never done before for this series, which is a quick live segment where I'm going to show you around some of the new assets that I've been using. I'm just too excited to wait for the episodes that include these assets, so I just really wanted to show you now. So I'll meet you in the future. Welcome to the future. I'm not sure if it counts as a few seconds or over a year, because most of this episode was recorded over a year ago, but either way, we're here. So here's what we just built. It's all right. You can see some spoilers for the cinematics there. That's fine. Let's just, I'm going to try not to spoil anything. So we're just going to go over here, down the freeway. Just ignore all this stuff. Peel off here. Keep going. Just ignore all that. And I just want to show you this little area by the beach. This is a relatively small part of a episode that is far, far, far in the future, but look at these assets. Let me just change the position of the sun here. I don't remember the name of the asset creator who created this Puerto Rican house pack, but I'm going to link it in the description, in addition to, of course, my whole mod list for the city, which is always there. But I just wanted to show some appreciation for whoever made these, because they are so cool. This blue one here is one of my favorites. There's just something about the structure that just looks, I don't know. The structure just looks Puerto Rican. The fact that it goes back, I think most of these are 4 tiles long, which is nice, 4x2. So it really, when you look at it from above, it really gives the proper look. Obviously, I have a few other assets mixed in here just for some variety, because there are, I think there are about 10 houses in this pack. But things like these designs on the front of the house and these little fences are just, that's exactly the look I'm looking for. And you can recolor them as well, which is nice. It just gives some more variety. That one's really cool. But this is just exactly what I'm looking for. There are also some Cuban buildings in here, and some of those Mexican ones as well. Again, just for variety. I really like this one too. Although this one, if you put it down a lot, you can there's something about the silhouette that just, at least my eye, just very easily picks this out from above if it's copied and pasted all over. So I try not to use it too much. And it's nice that some of them have garages as well, and driveways. Let's find one with a driveway. Yeah, like right here. That just like, I'm not Puerto Rican or anything, but to me that looks exactly like what I've seen in pictures and visiting, of course. So yeah, that's a little glimpse into the future of Todos Santos. Zoom back here a little bit just so you can the simulation finally started. Every time I load the game, the simulation freezes for about 5 minutes. I can't do anything, can't interact at all other than moving the camera around. But it seems to always work, so that's good. Anyway, this is the look I'm going for. Again, you can see I've Gone a little sparser with the trees, so that it looks a bit less like it's just built in a forest. Yeah, thanks for sticking around for the live portion. I hope you enjoyed the cinematics. You'll get to see some of these buildings sprinkled in around the area we just built. So next episode, we're going to start working on filling in the downtown. And we end up filling in just about all of it, except for a couple small areas that we're going to come back to at a later date. It's going to be about 5 episodes it's going to take us, and then we're going to move on elsewhere. I'm not going to spoil anything more. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see you on the next episode of Todos Santos. Bye.